Hello and welcome to Kingston Now. I'm Jimmy Buff. Almost a year ago, after nearly 20 years as a congressman, Maurice Hinchey announced his retirement. Immediately the accolades began. Champion of the environment, strong advocate for bringing jobs and resources to the area, supporter of the arts and community, and a man who voted with his conscience. Congressman Hinchey is with us now. Thank you for joining us on Kingston Now, Congressman.
Well, Jimmy, thank you very much. I deeply appreciate the opportunity to be with you and to try to talk about some of these things.
Combined with your time in Washington and your time in the State Assembly in Albany before that, that's 38 years of public service.
Yes.
Have you had a chance to reflect on that at all?
Well, I've had a chance to reflect on it, but I've had, other things that I've had to do, so there hasn't been much reflection on it completely. But nevertheless, I mean, I have an understanding of the things that we've been engaged in. First of all, up in Albany. The things that we did, first of all, with the Love Canal. Love Canal.
Well, going back to your early career in the New York State Assembly, you know, a champion of the environment in 1976 or 7 was a pretty unusual thing. Nowadays, the environment is much more in the forefront. But what happened in Love Canal, and you leading on the forefront, was an extraordinary story. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
First of all, it's the nation's first major toxic dump site. There was nothing else that was anything like it at the time. Now, there may have been some other things that were quiet and not understanding. I don't know for anything about that, but this one was the one that got the attention and the one that got all the operations to dealing with this stuff. Landmark environmental legislation included the nation's first law to control acid rain. That was one of the first things that we did. And it was because of the fact that I went over across across New York State here, over to the west side, and dealt with a lot of people over there, and we did positive environments and reflections, and people talked about the situation there, and we were able to develop legislation that dealt with that particular problem, and as a result of dealing with that particular problem, dealt with other serious problems like it.
It certainly set a precedent for how to handle environmental issues, certainly in New York State and in the Hudson Valley, which also led to something else you were greatly involved in, which was holding GE's feet to the fire in cleaning up the PCBs they had been dumping in the river for 40 years. Tell me about that.
The fact of the matter is that was a very, very serious situation. It was a very serious situation because of the fact that there was 1.3 million pounds, and that's what we knew about at the time, 1.3 million pounds of PCBs that had been dumped into the Hudson River. And that dumping in the Hudson River went in year after year from 1947 until at least 1977. And of course, with the pressure then, it was stopped. At least most of it was stopped at that particular time. But back to this day is, I was chairman of the operation there in Albany, and we were able to get attention to this and eventually get it stopped. And it took time. It took time, it took a lot of pressure, and it took me, frankly, in Albany and then later on down in Washington, and continuing the situation down in Washington for this particular problem. And as a result of that, it stopped, as I mentioned, and the situation now is being cleaned up. It's being made much more effective. So that is one of the most important things for anything around this region, because this river, this beautiful, gorgeous, historic
It's our highway,
river.
right? It's our highway here in the Hudson Valley. It's the thing
Absolutely.
that defines us.
Yes, it is. It's our highway. God, it's a great thing to mention that.
So you've gotten a lot of attention for your support of environmental action here in the Hudson Valley. Sometimes people forget that you also had a hand in cleaning up some of the organized crime issue in Ulster County. Can you tell me about that?
Oh, God, yes. We had a situation here. Well, this is something that I just took serious attention in because of the fact that I was looking at the environmental situation south of Ulster County and how the situation there was being delivered up into Ulster County.
We're talking about the waste haulers, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The waste haulers. And the waste haulers were going from down south here and bringing it up into Ulster County and other places and just depositing it. And it was nasty, mean stuff. So I went down there and I began to investigate the situation. And we went into it very, very dramatically and very, very completely. The more I was down there, the more serious I got into it, because I could see that it was something that was very, very, something that had to be stopped. It had to be changed and had to be taken care of, including one of the things of one of the people that they worked with. That person disappeared. And so I asked the
local authorities here to look into it, right?
Yes, exactly. Asked the authorities to go down and look into the situation down there, which is a place where they had dumped, and to dig it out, because I thought that this guy was going to be in there. So they went down and they did dig it. And they said, well, we dug it, but we haven't found anything. And I said, please, will you just go down and dig a little bit deeper? And they did. They went down and they dug deeper, and they came up with his body. And that's one of the situations that resulted in the end of this whole operation. 20 people were convicted in the context of the murder of this man and the other things that they had done and the contamination of the very serious operation.
Well, we've enjoyed having you as a congressman in the area, and we wish you the best in your time in your retirement. And I know that you're not going to go quietly. You're going to still be a voice when it needs to be heard in the area.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This is Kingston Now. Next up, it's the newly re-elected Chris Gibson, who will represent many of the same areas that Maurice Hinchey did, but from the other side of the aisle. Stay with us. You're watching Kingston Now. Chris Gibson is an Iraq war veteran. He's taught at West Point and is the author of Securing the State, a book on national security decision-making published in 2008. In 2010, Chris Gibson beat Scott Murphy to represent the 20th Congressional District, and last month he beat Julian Schreiben to represent the newly redistricted 19th Congressional District. Congressman Gibson joins us now.
Hey, Jimmy, great to be back with you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Congratulations on the win.
Thank you.
Was this a tougher campaign than the first time around?
Well, I think it was somewhat different. I'm glad it's over. We're already back to work. As you've probably been seeing on the news, I mean, we're working on what has been termed the fiscal cliff. And I'm also putting energy to make sure we get a farm bill done, which I think is vitally important for our farmers.
From the outside looking in, it looks like there is such a deadlock in Congress. And it seems like that isn't really going to change much. Yet we're faced with this incredible deadline. How does that? How do things loosen up so we get some sort of agreement that works for everyone?
Yeah. Well, what you just described is accurate for the moment, disappointingly. But what I would say is look at the fact over the last 18 months, there have been moments when we have come together. Very important trade agreements, fair trade agreements that changed the policies which were unfair to us. It helped our farmers here. We did this in South Korea, Panama, and Colombia. House Republicans working with House Democrats, working with the Senate, both sides, working with the President. We got that done. Transportation bill. Some thought it was too hard. We wouldn't be able to get it done. And we did get it done in a bipartisan way. A bill that's good for New York. We're going to help with that Tappan Zee Bridge and many, many other projects all throughout our state. It's going to be good for our country. And that was another moment where Democrats and Republicans worked together. We did it with the student loan, making sure we kept the rate at 3.4%. Actually, there was about a dozen different occasions where significant bills where we came together to get that done. And I'm always influenced by Aristotle. He said you make a good person one day at a time by habit. And what I've tried to emphasize with my colleagues is let's get in the habit of working together. 20 different issues. Nobody's asking anyone to give up on their principles. You disagree on 12 issues. Let's work on the 8 that we do agree upon. Let's work on that. And what I found in Iraq, when I was bringing Sunni, Shias, Kurds, Turkmen, Yazidi, Zoroasters, Christians, and Jews together, is that once you get in the habit of working together, then, those 12 issues that you thought were intractable, maybe 3 or 4 of those you can actually find a way to work together once you've resolved the 8 that you knew that you could reach common ground on. So this is why I've been emphasizing the Cooper-Latourette bipartisan budget, because it's already proven to be a vehicle that can attract bipartisan support. Look, it's not perfect. Nobody's all enthused about everything in it. But what it is it's a pro-growth budget, a 10-year budget, that gets $1.2 trillion in additional revenues by changing the tax code, which is complex and unfair, driving consumption for the middle class through closing loopholes and lowering rates for small business owners in the middle class. By doing that, and the spending levels are such that we can support $2.8 trillion of spending cuts. When you put that together, that's $4 trillion. That's a big number. And when you look at Standards & Poor's, what they said last summer, they said if you get a grand agreement like that, you'll keep your AAA rating. And the other piece of this I think is very important to recognize is that many economists have said, regardless of whether they're from the left or the right, have said there's up to $3 trillion sitting on the sidelines, waiting for the grand agreement. When we reach this agreement, that money is going to come into the economy. And when it does, an agreement that may look like a B- at the moment, next year will look like a B and a B+ the year after. The point is this, is that when we reach that agreement, when that money comes into the economy, we will grow. Because this is still the world's best bet. And think of the alternative if we don't come together. You got a situation where the left and the right, they don't agree. Well, you look what the founders said. If in our constitutional design, if you don't reach consensus, you get the status quo. And if you believe as I do, the status quo is unacceptable, then you're going to have to find a way to work together. You just do. So this is what has been my work for the past week in D.C. I got back, just yesterday, but it's going to take more of that because, as you point out, at the moment we are deadlocked.
It sounds like a very workable scenario that you're painting. Then why is support for it so minimal? Why have only 30?
Well, first of all, I think there is this sort of psychological movement that somebody needs to make, a legislator needs to make, that hey, this isn't perfect. So there's that. Imbued with a sense of history, I'm already there because I know that if we don't reach common ground, we'll get the status quo, and that's. The status quo is what got me into this in the first place, why I retired from the Army. To come out and do this is because we know we can do better than this. That's the first piece of it. The second piece is there are outside groups on the left and the right that are working really hard to convince members not to reach out and to find the common agreement, to dig in and where they're at. And I think all Americans need to recognize that if we pursue that course of action, we're not going to go anywhere. We're just going to stay right where we're at right now, which is unacceptable in my view.
We're going to take a quick break, come back and talk more with you, okay?
Great. Thanks, Jimmy.
This is Kingston Now. More with Congressman Chris Gibson when we return. Welcome back to Kingston Now. Joining us again is Congressman Chris Gibson. So just before the break, we were talking about some of those organizations on the left and right that sort of influencing people in one way or another. One of the big things that it seems to happen in the past couple weeks is that some of your fellow Republicans and even you have sort of started to distance yourself from the Grover Norquist tax pledge. Is it wise to have someone have that much influence over one party or the other, which it sort of seems that Norquist did with this tax pledge?
Well, in my own case, I voted our district in every instance, and so it did not impact my voting. But given the fact that nearly 60% of my district is new, we just went through this election process, and moving to the 19th, then clearly any kind of pledge that I would have made would need to be updated. And while I could update it for the new district, I've decided not to. I've decided not to do that because I've already got a record. The most important thing is how I vote to represent this area. And my record is one that I think truly advances the interests of upstate New York communities. It is pro-growth. It is reasonable. We want to see a situation where every American gets an opportunity to rise to their God-given potential, and that we live in a manner such that future generations, their choices are not limited by our decisions in terms of overspending. We have to find a way to move back to a balanced budget over time. So I feel that my voting record speaks for the job that I'm doing. So I had no need to re-sign the pledge.
What did you learn in your first term in Congress? Because
Yeah.
you're starting your second, you're no longer a rookie.
Well, you know, the first thing is getting the pace or the rhythm down, because it's certainly things move very fast. And why it's important to get that rhythm and pace down is there are inflection points when an office can make a difference on these bills. You know, when appropriations bills are moving, you know, we were able to, fortunately, I think, be very agile and move quickly. But in terms of broadband, we brought the amendment that overturned the leadership's decision to zero out the low-interest loan program. We were successful in that. In a bipartisan amendment, 90 Republicans, 131 Democrats, we passed it. The Senate agreed to it. The President signed it. But I would tell you that 72 hours before, I had no idea that they were even moving on that program to zero it out. And I didn't really have a strategy. So while we were effective and successful, I like to, you know, given my military background, I like to anticipate as much as I can so that we can, you know, focus our efforts and be effective. So what I've learned is, you know, this process that we go through, where it is that my office needs to be ready with an amendment, with working with my colleagues, both sides of the aisle, so that we can advance our interests here. You know, Lyme disease. You know, I think I mentioned the last time we were together that I learned so much just going to the 137 towns that were the 20th congressional district and listening, and nearly everyone I talked to either were personally impacted or had family member or friends that were impacted by Lyme. So our office, we started digging into this in a very significant way and very quickly learned, you know, who were the champions on the Hill for this, and we collided, if you will, in a positive way of when we could make an impact, and we were able to get $8.75 million more for better testing for our Lyme disease and also for better treatment for chronic Lyme. But now, knowing the process, we're in a position to do two things. One is to be ready for appropriations, and the second thing is with hearings for discovery. Because there's more that I think our district can help to bring to the table when it comes to addressing Lyme. You know, we've got the Carey Institute right there in Dutchess County. We have some of the smartest people in our country when it comes to understanding the scourge, the public health scourge of Lyme. So we're going to be in a position to bring some of these experts forward as witnesses for some of these hearings. So I think that's what I would tell you. Among the things I've learned is the schedule and how you can get organized to effectuate, you know, what it is that you view as the upstate community's priorities.
You just mentioned that a huge portion of your new district is brand new to you.
Yeah.
What do you see going forward for the next 2 years for the district?
Right. Well, fortunately, a lot of the interests are very similar to the 20th, and I'm situated in the committees that I'm on to really bring strong representation. I'm on the Agricultural Committee. Ag continues to be the #1 driver for our economy. In fact, we're convened here. We had a farmers market right downstairs of the winter farmers market for Kingston. So very proud of our farmers, the smartest, the hardest working farmers in the world, and the opportunity to bring their goods here to the hub, if you will. I mean, this is the point that Mayor Gallo and we've had extensive conversations about how integral Kingston is to the agricultural economy. And educating my colleagues down in the Congress, because you know, to those that may not track agricultural issues every day, they have a mental picture of farms, and then they have a mental picture of urban, and then what the needs are in these respective communities, and don't always see the connectivity between the two. I call it the hub and the spokes,
Sure.
But because I think it's really important, because we have some programs down in Washington, D.C., that bring too bright a line between the rural and the urban, and this is a perfect example where we're bringing goods from throughout, the farmers' goods from all throughout our communities, not just Ulster County, but beyond, and we're bringing them here to Kingston for sale. And so when we have like the rural development title in the Farm Bill, it's important that the thresholds recognize the fact that this is all part of the agricultural economy, so that they can be eligible for those grant programs too. So, you know, I think that that's really important in the representation I'm looking to bring here is a better education and understanding of the inextricable link between the farms, the agricultural community, and the urban center in a county seat. Because this is what makes New York a little bit unique that I'm finding, is that this is actually common throughout New York. I mean, it's not just Kingston, Ulster County, and of course it's also Saratoga Springs, and of course the farms that are around that area. It's Watertown and the surrounding areas, the community all throughout Watertown. You tend to see a hub and you see farms all out throughout the county, and I think it's important to view them as one and the same. And transportation is another very important priority. I'm talking about infrastructure, but the surface transportation bill, we're talking about our roads and bridges. We're talking about sewers and dams and
Really important to the people of Kingston as we deal with
Really
the sinkhole
important.
here.
Look, absolutely, and it's important all throughout upstate New York. And look, we got, as I mentioned earlier, we got a 2-year bill, 2-year and 3-year month bill last Congress. This Congress, I'm finishing up now, and it's important and it's good for New York, but we can do better. I'm looking for us to get a 5-year robust surface transportation bill done. And like the last one, I want to be part of helping shape it. I think it's going to be very important, not only to give us confidence in our roads and bridges, and we've got 7,000 of them need work, bridges here in New York State, but also it helps to get into more full employment our contractors and building trades.
Terrific. Well, we're looking forward to having you in Kingston
Thank
too,
you.
because as you said, you're going to move your office to
Yeah.
the hub, to Midtown Kingston.
Yes, we're going to be in
The hub
Midtown.
of the hub is where you're going to be.
So excited to do this. Look, we hope to be up and running in Midtown by the first week of January. In our current district, we work across all our district offices. We work 90 to 100 assistance cases a week. You know, whether that be for veterans or for Medicare or Social Security, immigration, any number of issues, we are there to serve everyone.
Terrific.
Here.
We're looking forward to having you here and
Thanks,
having you
Jim.
back on Kingston Now sometime soon.
Okay, I look forward to it.
Thanks for being here.
Happy holidays to
Thank you,
everyone.
too.
God bless.
That's it for this week's show. Our thanks and best wishes to retiring Congressman Maurice Hinchey, and our thanks and best wishes to Congressman Chris Gibson. Remember, all of our previous shows are available on our YouTube channel, and you can find that link on our Facebook page. For Kingston Now, I'm Jimmy Buff. We'll see you next time.